The rain was coming down in sheets that night. She stood barefoot on the porch, shaking, while the woman inside screamed the words that changed her life forever. "Get out." She thought she was protecting her home. But what she didn't know was that those two words would come back years later in a way no one could have imagined. Police lights flashed in the distance. A courtroom door slammed shut. An older voice trembled. "I never knew the truth, not until it was too late." And the lie that started it all? It didn't just destroy one life. It exposed everything. If you're ready to hear the truth about what really happened that night, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. This story gets darker than you think. Emma Clark was 14 years old when her world fell apart. She lived in a small town in rural Indiana, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone's business, where secrets festered behind white picket fences and Sunday church smiles. Her home was a modest two-story house on Maple Street, weathered by Midwestern winters and family tension that had been building for years. Emma's mother had died when she was 9, a sudden aneurysm that left her father Daniel scrambling to raise a teenage daughter alone. He remarried quickly, too quickly, to a woman named Linda, who brought her own daughter into the household, 15-year-old Brianna. From the outside, it looked like a fresh start for a grieving family. Inside those walls, it was anything but. Emma kept a diary, pages filled with the dreams of an ordinary girl. She wanted to be a veterinarian. She loved sketching horses in the margins of her notebooks. She had a crush on a boy named Marcus from her biology class. Her teachers described her as quiet, responsible, maybe a little withdrawn since her mother's death. Neighbors remembered her as the girl who always waved, who helped Mrs. Patterson carry groceries, who rode her bike to the library every Saturday afternoon. But something had shifted in recent weeks. Emma had become more isolated, spending hours alone in her room. At dinner, she barely spoke. Her father noticed, but attributed it to normal teenage behavior. Linda noticed too, but her interpretation was different, darker, shaped by whispers from someone she trusted. If you're still with me, smash that like button and let me know in the comments what you think is about to happen. Trust me, you won't see this coming. The tension in the house had been escalating for months. Brianna, Linda's biological daughter, had struggled with a blended family arrangement. She resented sharing her mother's attention, resented the small bedroom she'd been given while Emma kept the larger room that had been hers since childhood. Brianna was popular at school, confident in ways Emma never was, and she knew how to work a room, how to tell a story, how to make people believe her version of events. She'd watch Emma with cold calculation, noting every movement, every friendship, every moment of happiness that felt like a personal theft. 3 weeks before the storm, Brianna started planting seeds. Small comments to her mother at first, barely noticeable. Emma was acting weird today. She was talking to some older guy after school. Then, "I'm worried about her, Mom. I think she might be getting into trouble." Linda, eager to be a good stepmother but uncertain of her role, listened with growing concern. Daniel worked long hours at the manufacturing plant, often coming home exhausted, trusting his new wife to handle the household dynamics he couldn't navigate. He loved Emma desperately, but didn't know how to reach her anymore, didn't understand the silent war being waged under his roof. The lies grew more elaborate. Brianna told her mother that Emma had been sneaking out at night, that she'd seen her with a backpack full of things that didn't belong to her, that she'd overheard Emma on the phone talking about running away. None of it was true, but Brianna delivered each fabrication with tears in her eyes, with the practiced concern of someone who knew exactly which emotional buttons to push. Linda wanted to believe her daughter. Blood was thicker than water, wasn't it? And Emma had been so distant lately, so closed off. Maybe Brianna was right to be worried. Maybe there was something dangerous happening that Daniel couldn't see because he was blinded by love for his biological daughter. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Drop a comment and tell me if you've ever dealt with a situation like this. The story is about to take a dark turn. The night of October 15th started like any other. Daniel was working a double shift. Linda was in the kitchen preparing dinner, her movements sharp and tense. Emma was upstairs doing homework, headphones on, lost in music that drowned out the rest of the world. Brianna was in her room, but she wasn't studying. She was preparing. She'd been planning this moment for weeks, refining the lie that would finally tip the scales in her favor. Around 7 o'clock, Brianna went to her mother's room. Her eyes were red, her voice shaking. "Mom, I need to tell you something, but I'm scared. I don't want Emma to get in trouble, but I can't keep this secret anymore." Linda set down the dish towel and sat on the bed, pulling her daughter close. "What is it, honey? You can tell me anything." Brianna took a deep breath, the performance of her life. "Emma has been stealing from you. Money from your purse, jewelry from your dresser. I saw her hiding things in her room. And Mom, there's more. She's been meeting someone, an older man. I think she's planning to leave with him. Tonight." The words hung in the air like poison. Linda's face went pale, then flushed with anger. "Are you absolutely certain?" Brianna nodded, squeezing out a tear. "I didn't want to believe it either, but I saw the text on her phone. She's been lying to all of us." Linda stood up, her whole body rigid with betrayal and rage. She'd opened her home to this girl, tried to love her as her own, and this was how Emma repaid her? By stealing, by planning to run away with some predator, by making a fool of her father? The confrontation happened fast. Linda stormed into Emma's room without knocking, Brianna following behind with manufactured concern on her face. "Where is it?" Linda demanded. Emma pulled off her headphones, confused. "Where's what?" "Don't play innocent with me. The money. The jewelry. Everything you've been stealing from me." Emma's eyes went wide with genuine shock. "I haven't stolen anything. What are you talking about?" If you're shocked by this twist, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories like this. Comment below what you would do in Linda's position. Linda wasn't listening. The rage had taken over, fueled by months of insecurity, by Brianna's calculated whispers, by the fear that she was losing control of her new family. "Brianna told me everything. The stealing, the lies, the man you've been seeing. You're just like your mother, aren't you? Selfish, destructive, tearing this family apart." The mention of her mother hit Emma like a physical blow. "Don't talk about her like that. I haven't done anything wrong. I don't know what Brianna told you, but it's not true." Brianna stepped forward, her voice soft and sad. "Emma, please. Just admit it. We want to help you." Emma looked at her stepsister and saw the truth in her eyes, the cold satisfaction, the calculated cruelty. This had been planned. Every word, every accusation, orchestrated to destroy her. "You're lying," Emma whispered. "You know I didn't do any of this." Linda exploded. "Enough. I won't have a thief and a liar under my roof. Daniel might be too blind to see what you really are, but I'm not. Get out." Emma's voice broke. "This is my home. My mom died here. Please, you have to listen to me. Get out," Linda screamed, grabbing Emma by the arm and pulling her toward the stairs. Emma struggled, tears streaming down her face, trying to explain, trying to make sense of what was happening. But Linda was beyond reason. She dragged Emma through the living room, past family photos that now felt like lies, and threw open the front door. The storm had rolled in fast, the kind of sudden Midwest tempest that turned day into night. Rain pounded the porch, lightning illuminated the neighborhood in stark white flashes. "Please," Emma begged. "At least let me get my phone, my shoes, something." Linda shoved her onto the porch. You should have thought of that before you betrayed this family. Get out and don't come back. The door slammed shut. Emma heard the deadbolt slide into place, a sound of finality that echoed through the storm. She was barefoot, wearing only jeans and a t-shirt, soaked within seconds. She pounded on the door, screaming for her father, but her voice was lost in the thunder. Inside, Brianna watched from the window upstairs, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Make sure you're subscribed because what happens next will blow your mind. Drop a comment telling me if you saw this coming. Emma stood on that porch for 20 minutes, shivering, hoping her father would come home, hoping Linda would change her mind. Neither happened. Finally, with nowhere else to go, she walked into the storm. Mrs. Patterson, the elderly neighbor, saw her from her kitchen window. She almost went out to help, almost called Emma over, but she hesitated. It was a family matter, wasn't it? She didn't want to interfere. That hesitation would haunt her for years. Emma walked 3 miles to her best friend Rachel's house, her feet bleeding from the rough pavement, her body shaking from cold and shock. Rachel's parents took her in immediately, wrapped her in blankets, gave her hot tea, and called the police. But when officers arrived at the Clark house an hour later, Linda had a different story ready. Emma ran away, she told them calmly. She's been troubled lately. Stealing, acting out. We had a fight and she left. We're very worried about her. The officers looked at each other. Teenage runaways were common. Family disputes were messy. Without evidence of abuse or immediate danger, their hands were tied. They took a report and left. When Daniel finally came home at midnight, exhausted from a shift, Linda met him at the door with tears in her eyes. She told him about the stealing, about the older man, about Emma's violent reaction when confronted. She told him Emma had chosen to leave, that she'd run out into the storm rather than face the consequences of her actions. Daniel was devastated, but, tragically, he believed his wife. He'd been so absent, so wrapped up in work and grief. Maybe he'd missed the warning signs. Maybe Emma had been spiraling and he'd been too blind to see it. Emma stayed with Rachel's family for 3 days before Child Protective Services got involved. There were meetings, interviews, assessments. Emma told her story, but Linda and Brianna told theirs with more confidence, more detail, more manufactured evidence. Brianna had planted items in Emma's room, a few pieces of Linda's costume jewelry, $40 in cash tucked into a textbook, printed screenshots of fake text conversations. The authorities saw a troubled teenager and a concerned stepmother trying her best. Hit that subscribe button if you're invested in Emma's story. Comment below what you think should happen to Brianna. Emma was placed in foster care temporarily while the situation was assessed. Daniel, caught between his daughter and his wife, withdrew into himself. He visited Emma once, a painful meeting in a sterile CPS office where neither of them knew what to say. Emma begged him to believe her, but doubt had already taken root. The town turned against her quickly. Small towns love their narratives, and the story of a troubled teen acting out after her mother's death was easier to accept than the truth. Emma's teachers noticed her absence, but assumed she'd moved. Her few friends drifted away, uncertain and uncomfortable. Only Rachel held firm, but even Rachel's parents eventually discouraged the friendship. They didn't want their daughter caught up in whatever drama had torn apart the Clark family. Emma bounced through 3 foster homes over the next 2 years. She withdrew further into herself, stopped trying to explain what had happened, stopped believing anyone would listen. She threw herself into schoolwork with desperate intensity, as if perfect grades could somehow prove her worth, could rewrite the narrative that had branded her as broken. She graduated at 16, took the GED, and applied to college with scholarships cobbled together from academic achievement and need-based grants. She left Indiana and never looked back. Meanwhile, back in that house on Maple Street, Brianna had what she wanted: her mother's undivided attention, the bigger bedroom, a family without competition. But victory tasted like ash. Linda had become harder, more suspicious, her relationship with Daniel strained by the loss of his daughter. Daniel worked even longer hours, avoiding a home that felt empty despite being full. He'd glimpse girls Emma's age and feel a stab of loss so profound it took his breath away. He'd started drinking just a little at first, then more. Brianna watched her carefully constructed world crumble in slow motion. The guilt started small, a whisper late at night, but it grew. She'd see Emma's abandoned diary in the trash and feel sick. She'd hear her mother and Daniel fighting about Emma and realize she'd destroyed more than one life. But she was in too deep. Admitting the truth meant admitting to a cruelty so calculated, so complete, that even her mother might not forgive her. Don't go anywhere. Subscribe and hit that notification bell because the story is about to take its biggest turn yet. Let me know in the comments if you believe in karma. 7 years passed. Emma was 21, a junior at Northwestern University studying veterinary medicine. She'd built a life from nothing, created a found family among friends who knew nothing of her past. She rarely thought about Indiana anymore, or at least she told herself she didn't. The scars were still there, buried deep, manifesting in trust issues and nightmares she wouldn't discuss, even in therapy. Then, one afternoon in April, her phone rang from an unknown Indiana number. She almost didn't answer. "Emma? It's Rachel." The voice from her past sent a jolt through her system. They hadn't spoken in 5 years. "Rachel."
"Hi.
"Is everything okay?" There was a long pause. "Emma, something's happened. Your father, he had a heart attack. He's in the hospital. It's serious." Emma felt the old pain resurface, sharp and immediate. Part of her wanted to hang up, to protect the life she'd built from the past that had tried to destroy her. But he was still her father. She took emergency leave from school and drove back to Indiana, her hands tight on the steering wheel, her mind racing through scenarios of what she'd say, what she'd feel. The hospital was the same one where her mother had died. Emma walked through corridors that smelled of antiseptic and fear, past waiting rooms full of worried families, until she reached her father's room. Daniel was pale, tubes running from his arms, monitors beeping steadily. He was asleep. Linda sat in the chair beside him, older now, worn down by years that hadn't been kind. She looked up when Emma entered, and for a moment neither woman spoke. "He's been asking for you," Linda finally said, her voice barely audible. Emma stayed by the door, uncertain. "How is he?" "Stable for now. They're not sure about long-term damage." Linda stood up, wringing her hands. "Emma, I need to tell you something. I need to, before it's too late." Emma's body tensed. "I don't think I want to hear it. If you're on the edge of your seat, show some love by subscribing and commenting. Tell me what you think Linda is about to confess." Linda's eyes filled with tears. "Brianna told me the truth. 2 months ago. She broke down and told me everything." The words hung in the air. Emma felt dizzy, years of suppressed rage, and pain rising like a wave. She lied about all of it. The stealing, the older man, everything. She set you up because she was jealous, because she wanted me to herself. And I believed her. God help me. I believed her, and I threw you out into that storm." Linda was crying now, ugly and desperate. "I destroyed your life. I destroyed Daniel's life. I destroyed our family because I was insecure and stupid, and I listened to a jealous teenager instead of giving you the benefit of the doubt. Emma, I am so sorry. I know it's not enough. I know sorry will never be enough. Emma stood frozen, processing 7 years of trauma being validated in a single moment. The vindication she'd dreamed of didn't feel like victory. It felt hollow, pointless, too late to matter. "Where is she?" Emma asked, her voice cold. "Brianna. Where is she?"
"She left."
She couldn't face what she'd done. She moved to California a month ago, changed her number. She said she couldn't live with the guilt anymore. Emma laughed bitterly. She couldn't live with the guilt? I couldn't live with being accused of things I didn't do. I couldn't live with losing my father, my home, everything I'd ever known. But she couldn't live with guilt. Linda reached out, but Emma stepped back. Don't touch me." Daniel stirred in the bed, his eyes opening slowly. It took him a moment to focus, and when he saw Emma, recognition flooded his face, followed immediately by anguish. "Emma," he whispered. She walked to his bedside, looking down at the man who'd raised her, who'd believed the worst of her when she needed him most. "Dad." "I'm sorry," he said, his voice breaking. "I'm so sorry, baby. I should have believed you. I should have fought for you. I was weak, and I was wrong, and I lost you." Emma felt tears sliding down her cheeks despite her determination not to cry in front of them.
"Yeah.
You did. Stay with me. We're approaching the final revelation. Subscribe and comment what you would do in Emma's position right now." They talked for hours, painful and halting, working through 7 years of abandonment and betrayal. Daniel explained how the guilt had eaten him alive, how he'd known in his gut something was wrong but had been too afraid to confront it. How his marriage had disintegrated under the weight of unspoken truths and missing daughters. How he'd driven past Northwestern once, just to see if he could glimpse Emma, but had been too ashamed to actually approach her. Linda sat in the corner, witnessing the damage she'd caused, offering no excuses, no justifications. She'd already filed for divorce, she told them. She couldn't stay in that house anymore, couldn't look at herself in the mirror. The guilt had destroyed her just as much as it had destroyed Brianna, though she knew she deserved far worse. As night fell, Emma made a decision that surprised even herself. "I'm not going to press charges," she said. "I'm not going to pursue this legally." Daniel looked confused. "Emma, what they did to you, that's serious. You could sue, you could have Brianna charged with filing false reports." Emma shook her head. "I could, but it won't give me back those 7 years. It won't undo the trauma or the foster homes or the nights I cried myself to sleep wondering what I'd done wrong. Taking revenge won't heal me. I've spent 7 years building a life. I'm not going to spend more time destroying theirs." Linda sobbed harder. "You're more gracious than I deserve." "I'm not being gracious," Emma said sharply. "I'm being selfish. I'm choosing my peace over your punishment. But don't mistake that for forgiveness. Forgiveness might never come." She turned to her father. "I'll come back while you recover. We can talk, we can try to rebuild something. But it won't be what it was. That trust is gone. You'll have to live with that." Daniel nodded, tears streaming down his weathered face. "I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make it right." Emma stayed in Indiana for 3 weeks while her father recovered. They had coffee every morning, talked about safe subjects at first, then gradually ventured into harder territory. She showed him photos of her life at Northwestern, her friends, her plans for veterinary school. He showed her years of birthday cards he'd written but never sent, afraid she wouldn't want to hear from him. Slowly, painfully, they began to build a fragile bridge across the chasm that had separated them. Almost at the end. Make sure you're subscribed and drop a comment telling me what you think happens next. This story has one more twist. But Emma couldn't let it end there. She needed to confront Brianna, needed to look her in the eye and hear the truth directly. It took 2 weeks of searching, calling mutual acquaintances, tracking digital footprints, but she finally found an address in San Diego. She flew out without telling anyone, her heart pounding as she stood outside a modest apartment complex overlooking the ocean. Brianna answered the door on the third knock. She was thinner than Emma remembered, with dark circles under her eyes and a haunted expression that spoke of sleepless nights and crushing guilt. When she saw Emma, she actually stumbled backward.
Emma.
"Can I come in?" Brianna nodded mutely, stepping aside. The apartment was sparse, temporary-looking, the home of someone who hadn't fully committed to staying anywhere. They sat across from each other in a small living room, the silence stretching between them like barbed wire. Finally, Brianna spoke. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even know why I told Mom the truth. Maybe I just couldn't carry it anymore. It was destroying me from the inside out." Emma studied her former stepsister, this person who'd orchestrated her destruction out of teenage jealousy and insecurity. "Why?" she asked simply. "Why did you do it?" Brianna's face crumpled. "Because I was 15 and stupid and jealous. Because you had a room I wanted, and a father who loved you unconditionally, and a dead mother everyone remembered as perfect. Because I was insecure and cruel, and I thought if I could make Mom hate you, she'd love me more. I didn't think it through. I didn't realize how big it would become, how out of control it would spiral. By the time I understood what I'd done, it was too late to take it back." "You could have told the truth at any point over 7 years," Emma said coldly. "Every day you stayed silent. You made the choice again." I know, and it's killing me. I dropped out of college because I couldn't focus. I can't maintain relationships because I don't trust myself. I wake up every morning hating who I am. That night, watching you stand in that storm, I felt powerful. Now I just feel like a monster." Last call to subscribe and comment. Tell me if you think Emma should forgive Brianna or not. Your answer might surprise you. Emma sat with that for a long moment, processing years of pain against the broken person in front of her. "You are a monster," she said finally. "What you did was monstrous. But you were also a kid who made a terrible choice and then didn't know how to fix it. That doesn't excuse it. It doesn't undo the damage. But maybe it explains it." Brianna wiped her eyes. "What are you going to do?" "Nothing," Emma said. "I'm going to go back to my life and finish my degree and become a veterinarian and build the future I want. You're going to have to live with what you did. That's your punishment, Brianna. You get to wake up every day knowing you destroyed an innocent person's life out of jealousy. You get to carry that weight forever." "I deserve worse." "Probably. But I'm not interested in revenge. I'm interested in moving forward." Emma stood to leave, but paused at the door. "For what it's worth, I hope you figure out how to live with yourself. I hope you find a way to be better than you were. Not for me, but for whoever comes into your life next. Don't do to them what you did to me." She left Brianna sitting in that sparse apartment, crying into her hands, and walked out into the California sunshine feeling lighter than she had in 7 years. The vindication she'd sought wasn't in Brianna's confession or Linda's apology, or even her father's desperate attempts at redemption. It was in finally, truly knowing that she'd been right all along. That she wasn't crazy or bad or broken. That she'd survived something terrible and built a life anyway. Emma flew back to Northwestern the next day. She graduated with honors 2 years later, got accepted into veterinary school, and eventually opened her own practice specializing in rescue animals. She and Daniel rebuilt their relationship slowly, carefully, with honesty and therapy and hard conversations. It would never be perfect, but it was real. Linda moved to Arizona and sent Emma a letter every year on the anniversary of that storm night, apologizing again, though Emma rarely responded. Brianna stayed in California, working as a victim's advocate for youth in foster care, trying to atone for sins that could never be fully erased. They never spoke again after that day in San Diego. And sometimes, late at night when Emma couldn't sleep, she thought about that 14-year-old girl standing barefoot in the rain, betrayed by everyone who should have protected her. She thought about how that girl had survived, had endured, had refused to let one lie define her entire existence. The storm had tried to break her. It had come close. But in the end, she'd walked through it and come out stronger on the other side. That was the real victory, Not in revenge or justice or apologies, but in simply refusing to let the darkness win. Make sure you subscribe for more true stories like this one. Comment below and tell me your thoughts on Emma's decision. Would you have done the same? And if you made it all the way to the end, type, "I survived the storm" in the comments so I know you're here. Your support means everything